Hey everyone, tonight, we're not just diving into history, we're delving into a nightmare. Not the kind with monsters under the bed, but the slow, insidious kind that creeps into your mind, warps your self-perception, and demands an impossible price. We're talking about medieval beauty standards, and I promise you, they were anything but beautiful. In fact, they were brutal, impossible, and frankly, terrifying. You might think, oh, just another history lesson. But I want you to truly feel this. Imagine for a moment, living in a world where your worth, your future, your very survival, you could see the faint blue veins beneath your skin, especially on your forehead and chest. This wasn't just a preference. It was a societal imperative. Tanned skin. Unthinkable. A tan meant you worked outdoors, a peasant toiling in the sun. And for nobility, that was a fate worse than what they actually did to themselves. It was about paleness, not just fair. In the 14th century, perfect wasn't about health or vitality, every deviation from the perfect visage, but scrutinizing every flaw, not admiring yourself. You're sitting before a polished bronze mirror, casting long, dancing shadows. The only light comes from a few flickering candles, the air thick with the scent of beeswax and old wool. Well, it was a cold stone chamber, hinged on conforming to an ideal that was literally designed to make you look half dead. Sounds dramatic. To achieve this ghostly pallor, women would go to horrifying lengths. They'd stay perpetually indoors, avoiding any hint of sunlight. They practiced believing it would drain away the impurities that caused ruddiness. And then, the concoctions, they'd smear their faces with vinegar, believing it would whiten and tighten the skin. They mixed in crushed pearls, for a subtle shimmer, and here's where it turns truly sinister. They used lead. Yes, lead. White lead was a common cosmetic. It burned. It corroded their skin, causing scarring and disfigurement over time. And, of course, it poisoned them, slowly and agonizingly. Think about that. Deliberately poisoning yourself for the sake of appearances. This wasn't vanity. It was desperation. It was a societal demand so potent, it compelled them to self-destruction. Queen Elizabeth of York were held up as the ideal, starkly pale, with hollowed cheeks and a dramatically high forehead. Whether this was her natural look or just how artists chose to depict her, we can't say for sure. But what we do know is that looking like death, warmed over was considered the height of fashion, and to achieve those sunken cheeks, starvation. Some accounts even mention women sucking on lemons or rubbing them on their faces to deflate their cheeks. Painful? Absolutely. Effective? Apparently. But at what cost? A constantly rumbling stomach, dizziness, weakness, for the sake of a fashionable hollow. Medieval painters often shied away from realism. Faces in their portraits were smooth, unnaturally pale, and utterly flawless. Why? Because flaws were seen as signs of sin. Beauty was purity. If you were lucky, the painter might add a touch of gold leaf, making you look even more otherworldly. If not, you simply looked like a specter. Meanwhile, out in the fields, peasant women, strong and healthy from their labor under the sun, were actual, vibrant human beings. But to the nobility, this healthy glow was horrifying. A sunburned noblewoman could lose her status, her reputation, even her virtue in the eyes of society. Imagine that pressure. Your social standing, your family's honor, riding on the absence of a tan line. And then there were the leeches. Yes, leeches, for beauty. Want whiter skin? Just stick a few of these wriggly creatures on your face and let them suck out the impurities, which was really just blood, making you paler, and likely quite weak. It wasn't scientific, not in the slightest, but people swore by it. We might look back and scoff, but think about our own times. How many of us have tried dubious detox trends or painful beauty procedures, convinced by marketing or societal pressure that they're the answer? The human desire to conform, to be beautiful, is a powerful, often irrational force, crossing centuries and cultures. eyebrows. They had to go, plucked into near non-existence. Why? Because expression was considered vulgar. The ideal woman had a blank, impassive face, like a statue. A woman showing too much emotion, too much personality through her expressions, was deemed unfeminine, perhaps even unholy. Some even went as far as to dye their scalp or dust it with bone powder to make their forehead appear even whiter and larger. Flattering. By modern standards, absolutely not. Expected, without a doubt, and speaking of the forehead, the higher, the better. Women would pluck their hair, use vinegar and even walnut oil, known to cause hair loss to force their hair to recede. Some even shaved the top of their heads to achieve that coveted expanse of pale skin. A high forehead was seen as a sign of intelligence, nobility, and purity. It might have even come from religious art, where the Virgin Mary was consistently depicted with a wide, calm brow. There's a story, perhaps apocryphal, about Isabeau of Bavaria, who plucked so much that her hair simply stopped growing. She resorted to wearing massive, towering headdresses to cover her receding hairline, which, unsurprisingly, led to chronic neck problems. No chiropractors in the Middle Ages, just prayer, and the unending pursuit of an impossible ideal. Those iconic, towering, cone-shaped hats, known as henna. They weren't just fashionable. They were designed to frame that impossibly high forehead, and a bonus point if your veins showed through the skin, indicating that your skin was as thin and delicate as parchment. Even if your real forehead didn't quite match the ideal, artists were happy to edit it in their portraits, much like our filters and Photoshop today, only with quills and pigments. The desire to present a perfect, curated version of ourselves is not a new phenomenon. And finally, the mouth. It had to be small, delicate, and, most importantly, silent. Teeth were not to be shown. Smiles, only the tightest, faintest curves of the lips. Laughter, unthinkable. It distorted your face, revealed your teeth, and was considered vulgar. Some women were even trained from a young age to suppress laughter, to cultivate an unexpressive visage. Big teeth, crooked teeth, or too much smiling could mean social suicide. In extreme cases, wealthy families might even have molars removed to make the mouth appear smaller. No braces, no whitening in sight, just sage leaves and mint wine for oral hygiene. This was, perhaps, one of the gentler tips on offer. But the absolute worst part of these medieval beauty standards wasn't the agonizing plucking, the corrosive creams, or even the blood-sucking leeches. It was the silence, the forced shrinking of everything that made you, your face, your appetite, your very personality. If you didn't conform, if you dared to be too expressive, too vibrant, too human, you weren't just considered ugly, you were suspicious. You were an outlier, so there you sat, your skin burning from the lead, your scalp raw from aggressive plucking, your eyebrows gone, your teeth aching from forced constraint. But hey, your forehead was perfect. Your face, a pale, blank canvas, admired from afar, yet judged up close for every minuscule imperfection. Congratulations, you were beautiful, and utterly, completely, haunted by the impossible demands of your time. This wasn't just about looking good. It was about erasing yourself, fitting into a mold so rigid, so extreme, that it left no room for individuality, for health, or for true happiness. We look back and might feel superior, but perhaps it's a mirror for our own times. The pressure to conform, to alter ourselves for external validation, to chase fleeting ideals of perfection. It's a human story that echoes through the ages, and sometimes, the most boring history can reveal the most profound truths about ourselves. So, as you drift off tonight, perhaps think about the true cost of beauty, and the courage it takes to define it for yourself. Sweet dreams, everyone. Or perhaps, sweet nightmares of history.